Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, to the latest edition of Cageside Speaks. My name is 14 Fitzpatrick, and on this snowy April day, we are going to talk about the week that was Mania week, more specifically, NXT TakeOver Dallas, which was a really good show. Was actually the first takeover that I saw besides the London one, and I was actually kind of surprised by it. I wasn't expecting much, and found out that there was a bunch of good matches on this show, and we will be talking about those, as well as some other things about NXT on today's show. But first, let's introduce our panel. Making his second appearance is the wonderful person who makes our logo for Cageside Speaks and also attended Mania weekend, Danny Baxter. That was your cue.
What's up, guys? Book club. I always thought we should have entrance music for these, so I tried.
Yeah, now I know. Now I'm like frantically pulling up YouTube.
Yeah. Anyway, and we also now have a trio of people, I believe, making their fourth appearances on this show. First up, Andrew F. Swift.
You see it. You see it.
Yep. Also making his appearance is Blue and Orange for Life.
What's up? For life.
And finally, the happiest person of Mania weekend because her boy is champion. If you haven't noticed her avatar, Tanya Rogers.
I just want to say I am so happy that I'm on here and we don't have to talk about him. Thank you.
But he's the guy now. That's awesome. So anyway,
no sarcasm there at all.
No, I actually mean that.
No, he's not being sarcastic. He actually likes it.
Yeah.
All right.
I generally actually liked Mania. I gave it a B+.
Oh, Fizzy.
It was a C to me. Because just like I knew that, but basically a lot of old guys were going to get their moment in the sun, and I really hope it's like a reset. It's like, okay, that was like a celebration of the past, and now we have to move on from that because these guys are almost dead.
Well, Shane McMahon keeps jumping off of high things, so that's more and more likely.
Well, if Monday and
Thursday,
Thursday,
the then part of the then now forever. It was the then. We got that out of the way.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if Monday and Thursday are an indication, I mean, it looked like a bit of a reset. We'll see now that we're out of Mania week.
Yeah, I mean, the booking is just, it's Squash City all of a sudden, and I'm loving it, you know? It's NXT
booking.
Yeah, exactly. It's NXT booking.
They've had NXT booking for the last week on the main roster.
Yeah, it's awesome actually to see that this NXT booking, it's like Vince said, okay, Hunter, you have the book. It's the summertime now. I'm not really worried about ratings and whatnot. I'm going to go cruise on my boat, and you take control of the ship. Try not to sink it into any icebergs, okay?
He's not going to sink it. I have faith in Triple H.
Oh,
hold on.
Oh.
Can we
No, he's not ready.
Timestamp 11:12 p.m. April 9th, 2016. Tanya Rogers. I have faith in Triple H.
He's not wrestling, is he? I have faith in him. It's not about him. I have faith in him. He'll do the right thing. And one more main roster thing. I really did expect Triple H to kind of try to bury Roman even worse. But other than the little, thing with the arm that he did when he beat him down, he really came there to put him over, and I got some respect from Triple H out of that.
Ooh.
Besides, Stephanie really wanted to go to that death metal concert in Dallas. I mean, seriously, I was telling my mom about her entrance. I was like, okay, so we have Mrs. Henderson, a fictional name for the person that's like the next door neighbor. She's a kind lady, waters the plants. Is the sort of person you see in a cul-de-sac. What's she doing in a death metal concert? That was basically Stephanie McMahon's character.
I thought it was full Thunderdome, like Mad Max style. You know, it was more like a Fury Road take. I loved it.
But hey, we're supposed to be talking about NXT, right?
Yeah.
Let's focus on Isengard, because Triple H has created his own little kingdom in Full Sail in Winter Park, Florida, and well, it was an interesting show. Should we start with the tag match? Because, you know, I have generally been hit or miss on American Alpha, and this was the first time that they really impressed me.
I mean, they haven't. It's the same thing they've been doing. I mean,
it's the first time you've been impressed by Jason. I will suplex your ass, Jordan.
Jordan, it's Gable I've always kind of had questions about. You know, I like his
only you, Fizzy.
It's the Olympian rule.
Gable.
No,
it was great. It was the perfect opener. It was, you know, balls to the wall. The fact that they had American Alpha to work with let the Revival be, you know, the cheating scumbags that they are. It was everything I could have asked for out of that match.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the spot where like a Revival attempt that like double team like suplex move, and Jordan's trying to get around the ref, and then he ends up catching Gable and like putting him down, and then they do double drop kicks and stereo Germans. I was just like, all right, you got me. I'm all in. You know, like that was about what 3-4 minutes into the match. I was like, all right, let's roll. This show has officially kicked off now. You know, when you got some moment of friendship like that.
The match really, I liked it, but the thing that really kind of made it seem important to me is because, like, you go back and you watch the botch. I didn't really take that much out of it. It was just that these are like young performers.
Yeah.
And this is like the biggest stage, the biggest match they'll ever have, and they just had nerves, and that kind of endears me to a performer, you know, when they're not all perfect all the time and show they're human. I really liked it.
Yeah, it's great. Like there was the you fucked up, and then the Botchamania chants, and
they went through. They didn't mess up after that. The crowd didn't throw them off.
No, yeah.
And speaking of, you know, the grandest stage of all, Danny was actually at the show.
Yeah, I was there at TakeOver. It was awesome. What a great time. It was amazing.
So what did you think of the tag match when you watched it there?
I would agree with Andrew. I think some of the things they did were really creative. Just something like catching somebody in mid suplex and setting him down, while wouldn't have much effect on the match. It was really kind of creative to see that, and I think that a lot of fans respond to American Alpha as bringing something they maybe haven't seen too much before, like Gable's mat wrestling expertise and just some weird, different type of arm drags and head scissors and all that stuff. It's something new. It's something different, and I think that fans are responding to that as much as maybe the characters and things like that. But overall, just say it was just deafening the whole night. I left hoarse from yelling different creative chants and stuff like that. And American Alpha were hugely over. I thought the Revival played well as the heels and didn't get too shaken by the Botchamania chants and stuff like that. So they played their part well in this match as well. And I think a lot of people were surprised maybe that they still had the belts leading into this, that they kept them at Roadblock and stuff. But I'm really glad that they did. I think it was much better to have a true face-heel match on this stage than have maybe a send-off for Enzo and Cass, which might not have fit as well.
I think it also shows that, maybe, like I know some people have been kind of wondering about whether the Revival would translate well to the main roster. I mean, I think the amount of crowd heat they got at TakeOver, and as well as the amount of heat they got at Roadblock, I think combined, first of all, they did an amazing job with what they were supposed to do at TakeOver, and I think that for me at least, put to rest a lot of the doubts I had about how well they translate, which is great, because I love to hate them. They're fantastic heels to root against.
I agree with you there, but I generally, the only thing I don't like about the Revival is the name. Teammate Burner, shout out to him, in the Fred, came up with a much, much better name the Orlando Wrecking Crew for the Revival.
Yeah.
Well, considering that Scott Dawson is basically channeling Arn Anderson, I love that name. Yeah, the Revival's not a great name, but, you know, small problems.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I think that team. I remember Gino on Cageside Live, like, kind of was just like, I don't see anything, interesting about them. They're just kind of like wrestlers who do moves, and I think that was hugely underselling those guys. I was kind of hoping they'd honestly drop the belts and get the call Monday. I'm like, I'm ready to see these guys in the main roster to get some real heel heat, which basically nobody does. It's all meta nonsense. Oh, the company's pushing this guy. I don't want push. Heel heat. That's the only way to get heat anymore, apparently. But these guys actually just make you hate them and want to lose. And they're just too smarmy. Their faces are just so good for hating. I don't know. It's just I love those guys.
Yeah.
and also those legs, they gonna be broke.
They're gonna take some legs. Yeah, exactly. And they just it's their spot they have on a tag when one of them gets on the ropes behind the guy and the other guy's in the ring and they just both punch the dude. That dual tandem punching spot is literally one of my 10 favorite things in wrestling right now. It's just let's just punch a guy. That's awesome. I love that, man.
And and they're out there throwing slingshot suplexes and gourd busters and stuff. It's so great. I mean, look, public service announcement. Anybody who's got the network, go and check out the Brain Busters. Check out the Four Horsemen on the old WCW TV episodes that are up now. It's you can see kind of where the Revival is drawing from, and it's just wonderful.
They're watching those very episodes where the Four Horsemen are squashing jobbers, quite literally and figuratively, fellow carpenters, because that's what Stan Hansen said.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really fantastic speech that he made about the importance of these carpenters to wrestling, and I'm glad that they're reintroducing that importance. Speaking of people who probably should have jobbed, the second match on this card is probably the weakest, mainly because a certain someone named Austin Aries won it. I'm a bit annoyed by that.
I mean, I think if they were having him planning Corbin win the Andre, it makes sense to me. But if you're gonna big time Austin Aries the first time he's on screen, to have him then lose the first big match that he has is a gutsy move.
He loses his value a lot.
I think the finish totally makes sense, and I think it makes sense that Aries went over, especially considering Corbin was about to win the Dre. But I think it was how they got there that didn't really get over with the crowd. Corbin just pretty much squashed him the entire match. I mean, he got in a ton of offense, and Aries just kind of pulled the end of days reversal out of nowhere. And so, we kind of didn't see it coming live. It didn't look convincing. It almost looked like they half-botched the roll-up for a second. And so when Corbin doesn't get out, I think everybody was like, what? Because he didn't get over any kind of a finisher for Aries. Corbin didn't look very good, not being able to kick it out was just basically a victory roll.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it was kind of the ending itself that kind of was a misstep for me. That was the only match that I didn't actually go back and rewatch, just because it was a little disappointing.
Yeah, my impression was that it was gonna be the first match of a feud in which Corbin would eventually go over. But now that he's called up, I think they might just nix that entirely. I can't really see Corbin going back down to NXT. I don't really see a point for him to be back down. I think he's totally ready. I think the fact that they're able to get his character over, on Raw in literally 10 seconds. If you don't know who I am, I don't care. That's just all right. Put the belt on Baron Corbin, man. Just let him go out there and just shit talk people.
Now watch as I take unnecessary offense from Dolph Ziggler for reasons that are undeniable.
Oh my god. Yeah, let me work 50-50 with Dolph Ziggler and result in a double countout because Dolph Ziggler is a guy we really need to protect right now.
Well, he's a fake rocker, okay? fake rockers are in for some reason. But I generally enjoy the fact that he's squashing both Aries and Ziggler as their two performers that I don't particularly care for. Aries because of his questionable decisions in his TNA run, and because of his general egotistical attitude that he has, which rubs me the wrong way. And Dolph Ziggler, Dolph Ziggler is in a similar position to where Daniel Bryan was about 2-3 years ago. Okay, he's basically on the edge of, okay, is this going to lead? If he takes one more hit, he's basically retired. And I would rather not see that and actually have him do something like, actually quit while he's ahead, while he still actually has, cognitive speech. Because he took that.
I don't think anybody wants to see another Ziggler push, though. I mean, if they were going to pull that trigger and make him a main eventer, they had that with Survivor Series, and they already messed that up. Like they had him be the lone survivor or whatever, and he was like, had more momentum, I think, since he cashed in the Money in the Bank after that Mania against Del Rio. And so they had him on that precipice of like being a main event guy, and even that they messed up. So I feel like they've had 2 or 3 chances with Ziggler if they've already dropped the ball on.
It doesn't help that that his ring style is basically 2006 OVW, and that's something that hurts him, it hurts Rose, and it hurts Orton. Because, there's no... Everything is so stagnant with those guys that it's hard for for me to get really interested in them. And Tanya has returned. Looks like she's having some technical difficulties.
She got called up to the main roster.
Yeah, she's done with us.
I will say the one thing about
Mania podcast.
The one thing I will say about Baron Corbin leaving at this time is I really would have liked to see Corbin against Nakamura as like kind of the ultimate match in his like, oh, I hate the indies type of thing. Because I can't see any other ending to that than Nakamura just kicking his head in, which would have been enjoyable.
Yeah, that would have been a great match actually. That would have been spectacular. Like Corbin trying to like talk him down and Nakamura just like a little bit and giving him those glares that he does, so well. Yeah. It's just like, okay, I would be absolutely on board for that, but it doesn't sound like we're gonna get that though.
I mean, him squashing Addison Aries, that's good. But the question is Aries going to be able to survive NXT? Because he didn't have a good debut, as we've discussed. Who's his next opponent after this? And if someone says the Drifter, it's most likely him.
Sorry, go Tom.
I think Aries is probably, if Baron Corbin's not there, they're going to go ahead and turn him heel.
I can see.
The way he was presented, he wasn't presented like a face. They presented him like the asshole that he is, except he was just going up against a bigger asshole in Baron Corbin.
He was a hero, Tanya. Baron Corbin's the hero here, not the heel.
Of course he is.
God, this is going to be like Sami Zayn all over again.
Yeah, right, seriously.
Oh, we haven't even talked about Evil yet.
I rest my case.
Right, exactly.
Technically, what was Nakamura Zayn the third match on that card?
It was.
Okay, so he's actually the next segment. Thank Lord for Shinsuke Nakamura. He vanquished evil from NXT at long last.
Yada, 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 yada.
Fizzy, were you working Sean's high-pitched voice gimmick right there? Is that what that was?
No, I was very excited.
No, Fizzy was very excited. That's what that was.
Yeah. Fizzy, I don't you know what?
Let's not get into it because it'll take up the whole podcast.
Yeah.
You know what? I could probably explain it better. I don't think Sami Zayn is evil. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's a bad guy right now. The thing is that through his feuds with Neville and KO, like before that, he was presented as pretty much the way I saw him as like this really good guy. He would never do anything wrong. And in those feuds, there were some times where I questioned whether he was doing the right thing. I feel like he didn't care about his friendship with Neville. He didn't. He just wanted the title. So I think he emotionally blackmailed Neville, saying, if you beat me, I'll never wrestle again. And if you're going up against somebody you actually like, you don't want their career to be over. That's going to psychologically take you out of the game a little bit. So I think he was playing psychological warfare with Neville and with KO.
He questioned
That's not a good person.
parenting skills. Okay, Sami Zayn doesn't have any kids, last I checked. You
No,
know,
he doesn't.
why is he questioning the parenting skills of a 32-year-old man who has 2 kids
Yeah.
instead of actually focusing on the belt?
The thing with me about KO and Sami is that there's so much history there that there's no alignment there. You know, so like that's why they get the fight forever chance.
Against them, that's a bad move. If somebody is using their kids to block themselves from an attack, you don't shoot through the kid to get through to the person. He should have left that out of there. He shouldn't have mentioned those kids whatsoever. That's how I felt.
I think it's a little bit.
Neither of them have the high ground in that.
Oh no, neither of them.
The Neville thing. I mean, no. The Neville thing. Like I've always felt that Neville was the one who pulled the ref out in the Fatal 4-Way. That was the first step. Now
Neville faked an injury and rolled up Sami. Like those are heel moves.
But no, like Tanya's got a point. There was definitely some gray in Sami during those 2 feuds, and I appreciated that because I like gray. I like nuance, and NXT's been, usually pretty good about delivering on that in a way that makes sense. But to carry this back to TakeOver, the culmination of having, having Sami, I always thought that, having Sami come back and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be the first 2-time NXT champion, that hasn't exactly been established as something that you necessarily should want. You get the belt, you go up. If you get the belt more than once, might that not say something about sort of your position and where you're headed? Now, God knows whether they're ever going to call Finn Balor up, but that's another story. But having him be like the showcase match, like, God, Sami Zayn and Shinsuke Nakamura in the same ring, like, and it was as mind-blowing as I thought it was going to be.
I agree with you there.
I've watched that match from like the minute from the opening like video package to like as Sami walks off the screen for the final time in NXT. I've watched that entire thing probably close to 10 times in a week, and that's everything. Sami comes out, he's getting a big plop, big crowd, reaction, and then they start the Nakamura chant, and the lights go dim, and it's like, oh, here we go, and then that theme, like
violin.
I don't have any history with Nakamura, so I'm not like tied to subconscious, and Rising Sun as a theme, that gets you going, man. Like that hits it perfectly.
Major props to CFOS on that one. I mean, although I really think they've nailed a lot of the more recent ones. Like their earlier stuff is but like almost all of the more recent ones they've done, and Rising Sun is just amazing. Plus now I'm just thinking of Mania maybe next year or 2 years down the line. Shinsuke has Lindsey Sterling playing him out on her.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
I am a guy that was tied to subconscious, and I was there live. So like, when I didn't hear that hit for a second, I was like, "Oh man, like, are they gonna mess this up?" And then about 10 seconds like into that new theme, I was like, "All right, on board. This is amazing."
Yeah.
And now it's like #1 on the iTunes charts for a reason or whatever it is. So it was amazing. I mean, he owned it. I thought the production and the entrance was great too. Like, just they let him be him and had really cool elements behind him, like the projector reel and stuff. And even like the font his name is written in is perfect. Just like everything about that. You could tell that he had a lot of input into that and that it fit him perfectly. Like, what a perfect introduction for him as a character. It's great.
Yeah, he graduated art school, and he's an artist, so he understands how to do art, to do theater. You notice that in his entrance, every time that the musical beat hit, he was dancing to it.
Mm-hmm.
So when there would be a duh, his arm would swing one way. There would be a duh, his arm would swing the other way, and he would dance forward to the ring. That was the match that surprised me the most. From the minute that I saw on the introduction of the screen, it was like William Regal's going like, "Okay, Sami, we're gonna give you a match. Unfortunately, it's against Nakamura, so you're gonna be, well, ended. Please stop pestering me with more and more of your demands, son. I've had to deal with them for the last year and a half. This is it. Nakamura, this is your last shot." And Nakamura comes on the screen and basically says, "NXT TakeOver Dallas," and the call to Full Sail goes completely unglued.
Yeah.
And then you saw the match itself, and I was really surprised because you don't normally see a strong style match in the WWE, and this was a strong style match. You know,
Sami really went with the strong style. It was great.
It was.
From the moment that Sami mocked or mimicked Nakamura's like this whole bit, it was like it was lit. Like, fam, it was lit right from that point. I was running the live blog for Cageside Seats, and it's funny because like literally about halfway through the match, it just goes into all caps markout mode and just doesn't stop. It's just like all caps, including that section on the forearms where I just literally said something like, "All of the forearms forever are right now." And it's just like, oh my god.
That we brought up Sami's previous NXT work in this discussion, because it's almost like he went through that whole cycle in this match. Like when Nakamura is coming out, he's kind of smiling, he's like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." You know, seems like a nice guy in general when it starts. But then when he starts getting hit in the head, it's like, you know, he had that turn where he's like, "All right, well, now I actually just want to beat this guy." You know, and he does the mimicking, like, "Let's bring it on" type of thing. And then by the end, he's even mimicking the stiff kicks through the ropes, where, you know, Nakamura basically is trying to kick his head in, and the rest, you know, dragging him back. And Sami goes and does the same thing. I mean, I think it was a really cool, turn for his character during the match. And that's a match that tells a great story, where you start in one place and you end in another that's completely different. You know, it's good storytelling.
This match reminded me so much of the match he had at the G1 Climax 23 with Kota Ibushi, and that was a very similar match in which Ibushi was mocking him basically 95% of the match, and he was extraordinarily annoyed. So in the end there, that annoyance comes through, and he basically, they're calling it the Nisaria now? He Nisarias him in the face.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the thing I liked about that match. It's like you've seen so many matches where the crowd will be like, in this match, and in the middle of this match, you got a fight forever chant. So that's basically like, never stop fighting.
Yeah.
You never want to see this end, and that's the greatest compliment any crowd can give performers. Like, you're doing so good that we never want to see this end. And like, I don't know how anybody could like downrate this match. I've been watching wrestling since 1988. This is one of the best matches I have ever seen out of any promotion. Doesn't matter. And I've watched my fair share of other promotions. I've seen a lot of New Japan, seen a lot of Nakamura matches. This was a damn good match. Just like, great, wonderful.
I mean, the only
I kept saying.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I kept saying to my friend who was there and everybody around me that, like, it was just a perfect storm of a circumstance too. Like, I feel like the whole last year, maybe years, of the NXT indie relationship kind of led to this point where it's like, you know, Sami is obviously a main roster ready guy who's about to go up, so it's like a farewell match for him on one side versus one of the biggest stars in the world coming to NXT at a time when NXT is the hottest brand in the world. Like, there's all these different factors that just made that environment as electric as it was. And I think what was so cool is, even if you throw all of that out, if you just throw away all the atmosphere and all the lead up and stuff and just watch it just as a match, I mean, I know casual fans that were like, that match was amazing. So it's like great on all these different levels for what it means for wrestling right now, for how good it was, you know, in terms of an atmosphere, but also just they executed that match so well that it really worked in every single way.
And on that note, as Fizzy said, Fizzy mentioned Kota Ibushi, who was in the audience for TakeOver Dallas. You've got the Global Cruiserweight Series coming up. You had a crowd at Progress in the UK when Jim Smallman, the booker, came out. Like, he started to announce that they were going to have qualifying matches. He couldn't even finish before the crowd went nuts. Yeah. 2016 is a weird freaking year for wrestling.
2016.
Yeah, it's indeed a very, very weird year. And, well, this is a segment I believe one of us here on the panel is kind of dreading to talk about because, yes, you can see it in Andrew's face, because our next subject matter is the toughest one to talk about for him. Bayley versus the Empress of Destruction, Asuka. Tanya, we'll start with you. Just let Andrew get a little composure here.
Well, see, I don't know. I think I would have taken it differently had I seen Nakamura, Zayn, like, later. But, like, at the end, I was just depressed. I didn't like the way Bayley lost. I really didn't. My first initial reaction was, is Asuka turning heel? That was my first, like, they're going to make her a back, because I hardly ever see, like, the good guy choke somebody out like that. And I could understand why they're trying to do that to protect Bayley, but I would have rather seen a pin in this match. I would have rather seen a pin.
Mm-hmm.
I think the question about it is, if Bayley wasn't going to get, if Charlotte was going to retain the belt on Sunday, and Bayley wasn't going to get called up Monday, I don't understand why you put the belt on Asuka here. I think, unless that was like a last-second, change to not call her up, maybe like they did apparently with Gallows and Anderson. It just seems like there's not really a point to it. Like, if she's going to stay down in NXT. And she definitely could do a lot of good down there, like shepherding along like the next class of top level, female performers. Then I don't know. It's just a little bit of an interesting booking decision that I kind of expected, to happen. I expected Asuka to win. I was desperately hoping it wasn't. But then when you take everything around it, the circumstances, it kind of seems a little odd that they had Asuka go over.
I think they're planning on continuing the feud, and that's the reason why they did that. So what was your reaction to it, Danny?
It was surprising, I would say, live. I think it was surprising because you couldn't see as well as on the network when she's kind of going out, when she's fading out and ends up passing out to end the match. And I would definitely agree with Andrew. Like, I was definitely expecting her to go up to Raw based on that finish. Like, you think of that as a pretty perfect way to write off Bayley as a character. Like, she, lost the match, but she never gave up in it. She passed out before, she would lose. And I think that really fits her character really well as a send-off. And now it's just kind of like, yeah, where would she go from here? One thing about NXT is becoming so big now that you got to take the touring schedule into consideration as well, because they still do need to keep some people like a Balor, like Bayley, that will fill a house when they go on the road. And so I wonder if that call-up isn't still imminent, but that they needed to kind of keep her star power around for this next leg of their road trip tour that's happening.
While they're building, while they're building the people who will be that star for them when she moves up eventually.
Yeah, right. And I think that you still need a Bayley, like a star of that brand to maybe put over the next class, of women that are coming up as well. So I can see some roles for her still in NXT, but I think we all know that she's headed up pretty soon. And the booking in this match seemed to show that as well. I'd be surprised if we had a long Balor Joe-esque feud that comes out of this.
Tanya, you said that the match just sort of like got depressing at the end, and I think for a lot of people, like, the match suffered from going on after Nakamura Zayn, which was just such a high octane affair.
Yeah, well, they brought me back, but yeah.
Oh,
they
yeah, for
did.
sure. They had the crowd immediately back. Like,
Yeah.
as soon as Bayley's out there, people are like, all right, we're back. You know, like, we don't need a breaker. We don't need a breather. You know, we're all in.
It's the only way they could have.
Yeah, that's true. I strongly suggest to anyone who hasn't watched that match back yet to do it again, maybe even twice, and to watch it very slowly and deliberately, and just watch Bayley's work in the match and watch her character work especially. I think it's absolutely phenomenal and one of the best performances I have ever seen. And I'm a huge Bayley mark. I mean, I know I said in Eddie's thread the other day, you know, who's your favorite women's wrestler, and I said Bayley by a mile, which is considering what shirt I'm wearing right now is you know, and my history is quite a bold statement. But that girl is something else. It's just stupid how well she can get across what story she is telling.
She's the ace of NXT.
Yeah, she's definitely the ace, and she can work a number of different styles, which I think we saw in this match too. Like, her in-ring psychology was actually really good, and a lot of the things that Asuka was doing to set up submission holds, she was countering really well. She's like rolling in and out of different moves, ankle locks, and all this stuff that I hadn't seen from Bayley before, and you could tell that it was really good in-ring psychology. She kept trying to set, you know, Asuka up with her legs, like taking out both her legs, you know, and stuff, so that she couldn't kicks. Like, it just made sense.
Yeah, Bayley's a very smart wrestler.
Yes, that's definitely
She's
true.
very smart.
The bit where she almost gets Asuka in the triple armbar Coder 9 breaker thing that she beat Sasha Banks with at Respect.
Rings of Saturn?
Yeah, basically the Rings of Saturn. When Asuka like sort of maneuvers out of it, like she can't lock it in, Asuka maneuvers out, but then Bayley tries rolling her up and gets like a near fall. Right after that happened, Bayley like goes to the side and just goes like this to the mat, like knowing like these are her best, you know, weapons in her arsenal, and it's just not happening for her. I thought that was like just a fantastic like bit of how someone would react when their best stuff is not getting the job done.
As much as I loved the match, and I did love the match, I wonder if they're not booking themselves into a corner a little bit here. Because now you've established Asuka as, you know, as this monster, and you know, Bayley was kind of previously established as the only person who was kind of approaching that level, and you had Asuka choke Bayley out. So, you know, I wonder kind of like, how do you deal with how unstoppable you've made Asuka in a way that isn't, you know, Vince panicking about merch sales after SummerSlam 2014 and having that terrible Cena-Brock rematch at Night of Champions. I'm sure Tanya loved it, but...
No. No. I loved Brock killing Cena, and that should have been the end. But with this one, I don't know. Like, with... I think it would be better if they went ahead and tried to make Asuka a real monster instead of being popular. I think you can do this better with somebody who's evil, because that fans want to see somebody who's next to take them out. Because it's like everybody loves her and everybody loves her kicking somebody's head in. Who's gonna get behind the next person? Nobody's gonna believe the next person and be like, Asuka's gonna kill you, and that's what we want. So go away.
Yeah, Who do you have that can believably beat Asuka at this point? I don't know that there's anybody on that roster that
there isn't. I don't think. You have to build somebody up. You have to build somebody up and keep them away from Asuka.
There you go. As of currently, there's definitely not someone who can challenge. But NXT has a very strong history of building up strong competitors over time and not building someone up as an eventual challenger, but not immediately placing them in like a title feud, but just sort of like they've done with Asuka here. She was just kicking everybody's head in for the better part of 6 months, and the first interaction she ever has with Bayley is stroking the belt at whatever, I don't know what, Central Florida or wherever that was.
Full Sail University.
No, that was at the taping.
Central UCF show. Okay, yeah, I forgot that they did a tour there.
So I'm kind of a little bit curious, who are they going to build up here for? Maybe not the June takeover. Is there a June takeover? Is that what they said?
Yes, there is.
Maybe for Brooklyn or December. Who are they going to build up there? And
they have a couple of people who I could see it if they gave them the right build. I mean, they have Jessie McKay. Sorry, Billie Kay.
Mm-hmm.
They have Athena hanging around, even though they haven't put her on TV yet. And they just picked up Nikki Storm. So there are potentials there, but there's definitely got to be a lot of work put into building them.
And don't forget, I think they have a lot of stock in Nia Jax, and I'm a little bit afraid of how they would build that match. But I think that Nia Jax
Look at Sam. Look at how deflated he is. I know Leela Blaze would love it if they pushed Nia Jax, but I don't think that's where they're going. If they do, it's going to be one of the in the history books of top 10 worst decisions that they could have made for NXT, because Nia, she's decent, but she's not good.
She's not. She doesn't take bumps whatsoever. I understand that there's a monster and they're hardly ever supposed to leave their feet, but they are supposed to leave. That's the point, to pop the crowd, to eventually get them to bump. She took one bump in that match with Bayley. And people didn't realize that because Bayley's fucking awesome. Asuka's good, but she is not Bayley. Asuka's not Bayley. Let's get that clear. She's not going to do what Bayley did. People aren't going to be so enamored with Bayley that they don't care that Nia Jax is kind of crap. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not going to work again. That match was lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, that was your one shot, one kill, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to duplicate that with Asuka.
Right, exactly.
I love the idea of Nia Jax. I love, pushing someone whose look is that non-traditional.
Yeah.
I would love it if they gave it to somebody who's a little bit more mobile at minimum.
She's supposed to be working what's her name? Awesome Kong.
Yeah.
But she doesn't even she's smiling.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of you.
Yeah. It's definitely not something I want to see, but something that's in the back of my head. At some point, we're going to get that push for her, because I just feel like they're very invested in her.
Yeah.
And she just needs more ring time. I think she's just new to wrestling in general and has done a pretty good job with what she's had so far, but she just needs more matches, more ring time, to be able to wrestle a match without thinking about every spot and letting us see it about what she's going to do next.
She can't be, as Tanya said, can't be the immovable object for an entire match and then take one bump and lose.
That doesn't work in wrestling anymore.
Mm-hmm.
She can't be Earthquake.
Yeah.
Oh, Earthquake was more mobile.
John Tenta.
Yeah.
So if we all had to guess, who's gonna take the belt off Asuka? I'll say take the belt. This could be more than a year from now. Who's gonna do it? I'm gonna put everybody on the spot.
Anyway, I have one candidate, but before that, I thought this was the best match on the card. That's the odd opinion for me, and
I don't think it's.
I really liked Bayley's. I liked Bayley's viciousness in this match against Asuka's knees. She basically played the match sort of similar. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Bayley's indie work, she played heel.
Yeah.
She was Davina Rose in California, and she played a heel in this match against Asuka, but because she has so much crowd support behind her, she was a face. And I liked how they chopped off Asuka's legs. She wasn't able to use her strikes against Bayley as effectively as she had in the past, and that the only way that Asuka could feasibly defeat Bayley was putting her in the Asuka lock and doing this finish. This to me was.
I think it's interesting to note is that Asuka's roundhouse kick that she's been using as the finisher has either immediately led to a pin or straight up knocked a competitor out every previous time she's used it. And if you notice, towards the end of the match, before the Asuka lock gets put on, Bayley gets hit with the roundhouse kick and kind of stumbles against the ropes and stays on her feet, which is like a sign of how much they're trying to note like how elite level of a competitor Bayley is, that she can take that strike and be like totally dazed and like out of it, and the match is basically always going to end at that point. But the fact that she stays on her feet from it,
she still has fight left in her.
Still had fight left in her, even though it was like at that point it was basically a hopeless fight. But I don't know, that was beautiful stuff.
It was a
great match.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's that weird of an opinion. I think over time that match is going to get to look better and better and better in hindsight. Like every time I watch it, I see something new. That like when Asuka slapped Bayley, which is something a face-to-face match wouldn't generally happen, where it's all about like respect and appreciating the other competitor. And Bayley like literally tries to take her head off, like with two like roundhouse like punches. Like those are like shoot punches she's throwing, and like clearly Asuka's
rings. She's been watching rings.
Yeah, clearly Asuka's gonna dodge those. That's the spot. But those are shoot punches she is throwing, and I was just like, oh my god, I've never seen that ferocity out of Bayley before. And I thought
she was angry against Charlotte in her feud. Basically,
but not to that extent.
Yeah,
not to that extent.
Yeah, it was another level at TakeOver.
Yeah, it was a level where I was like, oh my god, has Bayley snapped for a second here? I was like, whoa.
I mean, I think I have Sami Nakamura over it, but at the level at which those two matches were, because they were both fucking incredible. Mm-hmm. But like at that level, like the one you have over the other is really gonna kind of vary based on how you feel about the people who are involved. Yeah. So say that I got more out of Sami and Nakamura takes nothing away from Bayley Asuka, because that match was also just balls to the wall insane.
Yeah, so to answer Andrew's question and avoid that one, I don't know if there is anybody on the roster right now that's going to be able to take it away from her. But one thing I will say that I'll be interested in watching, again, not because I want to see it, but because I'm interested in seeing what they're going to do with it, is I think that Dana Brooke is going to be a contender as well. And I say that because I think we're unfortunately going to get cheated out of Emma versus Asuka too. Mm-hmm. I think that the Emma-Asuka match at London is vastly underrated. That was such a good match.
It was really great.
That's one of my favorite matches of 2015.
Same here. And so I thought it would be really, really interesting if they went back to the Emma feud. But now that it looks like she's going to hang out on the main roster, I think they could build it to be Dana as a strong contender to Asuka's title. But I don't really see them taking it off Asuka for that one. But I think that is also maybe down the road.
Oh, God. I don't know how this has somehow become a running gag on Cageside, but we keep forgetting one little person, and that one little person is going to be so mad when she hears this podcast. And since 3 of you have face cams, I hope that you have doors that are strong enough to keep Alexa Bliss out of Pixie Hulk smash range.
I don't know. I really like Alexa Bliss.
Not on the level.
Alexa's not winning the title.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
I don't think she's going to challenge Asuka. If she does, it's going to be on a regular episode of the show, and she's going to get her head kicked.
Yeah, it's not going to go well for Alexa.
No.
No, I see. It's interesting you mentioned Alexa. I think Alexa will have like a Corbin-esque like run where like we don't really expect them to get called up, and then she gets called up. I think Alexa as a character is roughly ready. I mean, in the ring, she's not quite there, but I think she's ready to be on Raw. Doing talking
Alexa
bits at
needs
least.
some better offense.
Yeah, a little bit of more vicious, like better offense. She could learn a little bit from Emma in that regard.
Yeah.
She would be minimum top 10 on the stick if she got called up today.
Yeah.
and I could see a case for saying she's top 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, her ring work needs more work. I'm gonna go way out on a limb here. I think it's gonna be Athena.
Okay.
It's not gonna be anytime soon, but you know, like from what I've seen of Athena, and I highly recommend if y'all haven't seen it. There's a great match that she had with Mia Yim in AIW that I think you can still find on YouTube or Dailymotion. And you know, Athena has the size, she has the style, she has, you know, she can be vicious when she needs to be. I think there's a lot of potential in her, and like I said, it's not gonna be immediate, but I'll put myself out there. I think it'll be Athena.
I think that's the best answer, to be honest. I think you have Athena going over the roster for the next 8-10 months or whatever, and building her up as a challenger. I think that's what you do. But you know, it's interesting. Like I mentioned, it's the end of the horsewomen era. I mean, I know Bayley's still down there, but they've basically moved on from the horsewomen. And for me, NXT, I got into NXT because of the horsewomen, because of especially Sasha Banks,
So did I.
and then later when I grew to appreciate her more, Bayley. But it's a transitionary period, and that's why it's interesting. Like, who's going to win the title next? I mean, we don't need to guess who's going to win the men's title next, because Finn Balor's going to hold that belt until he's 52.
Oh, Lord.
Which is such a shame, you know.
And speaking of which,
Oh, Lordy.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
This was the worst main event that I have seen
Really? Interesting.
in my career in wrestling. And my career in wrestling has not been very long, to be fair. I was amazed at just how bad this match was. And let's note, Samoa Joe, he was phenomenal in this match.
Okay,
He
yeah.
was fantastic. Okay? All of the stuff he did was great. Okay? Him getting accidentally kicked in the face and blood gushing out of his forehead. Okay? That takes a lot of guts to go out there in the ring and, you know, continue to perform the match even though you have a head wound. But
no other way to put it.
every single thing that Finn Balor did just went, oh God! What are you doing with a chainsaw? Why are you dressed like Spider-Man? What's with the Kofi Kingston Jamaican deadlocks? Nothing about this character makes any sense. Well, the character that is there, which is very, very
Yeah.
minimum.
Okay, he's supposed to be a good guy, but he likes to dress up.
A serial killer.
Serial
Right.
killer.
London, Jack the Ripper. Here he was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
I think he's just going for like, oh, this seems cool factor, and a lot of us are like, but what about the story behind these killers, sir?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It turned me off with the Jack the Ripper thing because that was an actual guy who actually killed women. And I was like, does Finn Balor not know this guy actually was like
Real.
a person in London who actually killed people and not like a movie character? Does he know that? I didn't want to like get bad on him because he may not know it's a real person, but like it was weird. And ever since then, there's really nothing for me to get into for Finn Balor because I didn't know of him before this. So I'm just seeing what they're giving me. And all they're giving me is a guy who dresses up as a demon for no reason. He doesn't change his offense, his wrestling style whatsoever when he's Finn than when he's in the paint. The only difference is when he's in the paint, you know he's winning. That's it. And what kind of pissed me off, he had supposed, like on NXT, these big matches against Apollo Crews, and Apollo Crews is such a good opponent. Didn't wear the paint, still beat him. So to me, it's like if he comes out against someone in paint and still beats them, that opponent is not a serious opponent. They are a step below the main event, and they don't belong in the, like, to me. I don't know anybody else, but those kind of send signals to me that this person doesn't kind of belong in the NXT championship race because Finn beats him without the paint. So, you know, what's the point?
It's interesting because people who on the site who have gone to live shows have said that they let him do a lot more. Like kind of makes him look like more of an actual kind of fleshed out character instead of just a dude who wears war paint for no reason. So I think that the booking direction has been kind of weird, although Vid, as per usual, has kind of swung me around to his take on this, which is that they have Bayley Bayley has done all of the heavy lifting since the two of them became champions, and that allows them to use Finn as kind of a special attraction. Now, I can't pretend that I know why they're doing it that way and why they're really not giving Finn any kind of depth or substance. Sorry, Brigade, I'm not sorry. But but that appears to, like having Asuka go over, I wonder if they're not also booking themselves into another corner with Finn, because painted up Finn doesn't lose. So how do you get around that in a believable way?
Dump a can of paint on Samoa Joe?
But
maybe that was Joe's desire why he didn't want to get like stitched up. He was like, maybe this blood will duplicate his paint, and I will inherit these powers and win this match.
I mean, all praise to Joe. He was
for sure.
Fire. He was on fucking fire, and I actually loved the medical interruptions. Like
I did too. Yeah.
Like I know it broke the flow a little, but the way that he kept getting angrier and angrier and like, get away from me! Stop doing this! I have somebody to kill over there. Like I don't know, I don't know how many people on the site are kind of really familiar with, his work when he was Ring of Honor champ for 2 years, but like this is that kind of fire and that kind of like, holy shit, dude, you're 300 pounds. Why are you moving that fast? Like, just it's like getting back to that. He had a legitimate claim as like the best wrestler on the planet at that point, and he's getting back to that point, and it is a joy to watch.
He's certainly more believable than Finn Balor is, as in the role of, I am the most dangerous person in this ring. Fear me.
I don't see why they didn't go with Joe, because Joe would be a good like, even if you're planning on having Joe beat his next challenger, Joe is somebody who could make a guy look great in defeat, and I don't know if Finn Balor can do that. Finn Balor has he really made anyone look good when he beat him?
No.
I think Joe could do that. Joe's got that experience. He knows exactly what kind of emotional strings to pull out of an audience to get them, even if they want to see Joe kill him. Maybe no. Maybe we want to see this guy get past this monster. You know what I'm saying? And Finn is just, he is, to me, a WWE, like Triple H is getting Vince ready for his WWE, nothing draws but the brand person.
Yeah, that.
Like, there's really nothing to get behind, but it's kind of cool, and the entrance is great, so we show up and do the arms raising at the entrance, and yay, everybody loves them.
I'm starting to hear voices in my head, and it's not Randy Orton out in that entrance, but Finn Balor.
There you go.
Yeah.
He is his new Randy Orton. His better Roman Reigns.
That's a pretty good comparison, actually.
Yeah.
Like, technically smooth and sound and crisp, but...
And nothing there.
But just...
as interesting as watching paint dry on a wall.
Or paint dry on a man, I guess, yeah.
No, the wall's more interesting than Finn Balor.
All right, fair point.
I didn't by any means think it was a terrible match. Like, I thought it was
fine.
I thought it was a great match, but mostly because, again, of Joe being just on another level right now.
Yeah, I think that actually hurt maybe the story they intended to tell with that match, having all the medical stuff, because that's kind of how Joe became a tweener or even a face in the match, is by just ignoring what the medical team was saying and stuff. And it's like you had this really strong face-heel dynamic with Finn as the face and Joe as the heel, but he almost turned during the match because everybody wanted the match to keep going. It was really disrupting the flow. and stuff. And every time Joe was like, "No, get away from me! I don't need a towel. I don't want to be stitched up," he would attack it with that intensity you guys are talking about. He got over in that match to the point where it was almost like he wanted Finn to lose because Joe was just proving himself as his desire for that championship. It was really believable and really cool. But it's like a shoot thing, right? I mean, because they couldn't plan for him to have this gushing blood and all that stuff. And so
like 30 seconds.
Every reaction of his from there on out was his real emotion, and that came across, I think, really well.
And there's also always the question going into that match where it's like, well, we've gotten all these rumors about the Balor Club or Bulletproof or whatever, Bullet Club, whatever you want to call them at this point. So it's just like, well, maybe they'll do a double turn. Maybe Joe will be putting the boots to him, and Finn will look like he's going down, and then all of a sudden get some help and squeezes his way out of it as a smarmy, jackass. But people love Joe because it's like, well, Joe was going to do it, and then he got, screwed by these two, by Festus and Rastus or whatever Sean called them on Cageside Live.
The
I think
machine
that was
gun and the fake cane. Continue, Dave.
I think that was one of the big surprises of the whole weekend was the fact that they didn't debut at any point. I think going into TakeOver, most people thought that it was a foregone conclusion that Balor Club PG, Bullet Club PC, whatever you want to call them, were going to come out at some point. And the fact that they didn't ended up being kind of like almost like a swerve.
Yeah.
And so that got me wondering about the timing of that matchup too, because being there live, it was a good match. The crowd was really into it, but they were into it for the wrong reasons. We're all chanting PG sucks and FPG and all that stuff.
Right.
And it really kind of disrupted the flow of the match to the point where the finish actually felt very rushed. And so I started wondering a couple days later when I'm like, all right, well, it doesn't look like we're doing anything with Balor Club this weekend at all. Was it intended to maybe be part of the finish that they then wouldn't pull the trigger on because they didn't pull the trigger, no pun intended, have any time for it at the end? Because if they didn't have time for a big debut and all this stuff, because we spent so much time toweling up and trying to stitch Joe, did they say maybe, let's abort that and save it for a later date?
I don't know. I don't think that they were planning on debuting Gallows and Anderson in this spot. I think it was just a case of the match went long because of the medical situation that developed in the first 30 seconds of the match. But just the intensity from Joe of, leave me alone and let me go murder this demon Spider-Man cosplayer so I can go get his shiny thing. That was the wonderful part about the match.
Yeah.
Okay? He had his... Because I think Joe has worked as a mortgage broker. He had his mortgage broker face on in this match.
I will say one thing about this match that turned out disappointing is that if that was what they had intended for the finish of the match, and there was no debut, and Finn was going to go over clean with a weird roll-up for whatever, that shouldn't be the main event. That should have the main event spot should have been Bayley Asuka if that was the finish for that title match, because it was a sequel match we'd already seen before, and if you're going to have the same exact result with no bigger swerve or interest, that match, I'm going to hold Tripp's feet to the fire a little bit here. That match should not have mained, and I was a little bit disappointed about that. That also hurt my impression of the match too, because it's like, why was this the main event other than that they were men?
So I was just saying, do you want to really send the crowd home crying about Bayley dying in the ring?
You know what though? That's good. It means you've got emotional reaction. If you're gonna, my impression also was that Bayley was gonna go up, which would have made sense if they would have done a Bayley send off like they did for Sami. That's how I would have made the most sense to me. But I don't know. Just that finish to that match on that show, it just didn't feel right. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a letdown. Totally agree. It was a letdown where it was.
Yeah.
That was the most confusing part of the match for me, was that ending sequence there. Because you have Joe who's chopping down Finn like a tree, and then all of a sudden,
yeah, he gets really angry.
The sound from Finn's mouth was angry grandma who just had her arm slammed by the car door.
And again, we've given, we don't, there's nothing to establish that there's anything different other than the paint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, the demon has not been adequately explained for that to be believable.
You know, Finn should go back and watch some old Mick Foley, when Mick Foley was the Dude Love in the Cactus Jack and Mankind. And see, Mick didn't just put on a tie-dye shirt and still act like Mankind, you know what I'm saying? He acted differently. So if you're going to have this type of character where there's supposed to be two separate personalities, treat them as such. You know? That's my whole problem with the whole thing. He doesn't act any differently. It's the same guy. He just got paint on.
Come at us, Brigade.
I would love for him to come in. Why are you so angry about your guy? He is winning. I am not angry that people don't like Roman Reigns. What the fuck ever. That's my guy, and now he's the guy. That's how you're supposed to be. And if somebody shits on him, oh well. They don't like him. Move on. You don't flood the threads. And I'm saying this because I have just sit back and been quiet, and I love Roman Reigns to death. But so many people don't. So, and I don't come at them angry, and it's the opposite. It's a lot of people who love Finn Balor, just like he does, but he's so angry. And everybody must love this boring-ass man who cannot cut a promo to say, at least Roman Reigns can cut a heel promo. Finn Balor is so boring. He's like, no inflection whatsoever in anything he says. It's like, I'm not even mad at Finn Balor. I'm mad at Brigade for thinking I should love this guy. What? No, I'll be over here with my arms folded, waiting for him to impress me. Oh, he jumps around and does flippy shit. There are so many other guys that have that moveset, and to me, perform it better. So
the funny thing about that is that specifically about his promos is when he was Prince Devitt in New Japan, like he actually could cut a decent promo. Like there were
promos that he did in New Japan decent.
What?
Well, it was mostly heel stuff, though. Yeah, it's like heel Devitt was amazing. Heel Devitt had a lot of
bombs every 15 seconds does not constitute as a good promo in my view.
Okay, in my view, I thought the promos were pretty good. They were good heel promos, and they had inflection and changing of volume levels.
What happened? What happened?
All the things that Kanye was saying he doesn't have now, which is why it confuses me that his promos are so goddamn boring in NXT.
Are you thinking there's too much micromanaging, too many kitchen, cooks in the kitchen with him, telling them what to do?
I wonder about that because he is their guy. He is he is their face of the men's side. And he's their hook he's one of their two hooks for their tours. So I wonder if there are like many people like the Demon is kind of high concept, but also kind of not. And there's a lot of middle ground that if you have too many people tinkering, or even just a couple of people constantly changing things, you don't arrive at one thing, and it becomes this kind of like muddled mess. Because remember, there were those vignettes. God, when was it? Like between Brooklyn and Respect, or like right before Brooklyn, where he was standing there, and then it would flash, and it would be the Demon, and then it would be back to him. So at one point that says to me that they had an idea of making something out of it.
Yeah.
But then they got away from that again. So I don't know. I think it's certainly a possibility.
Get sued by Marvel because they were going for the Venom Carnage route with Finn, and they probably didn't want to get sued, honestly.
Well, if they weren't using the actual Venom or Carnage paint job, that wouldn't have been a problem.
No, it was the black tentacles and stuff like that, where they showcased the demon side. That might have been a bit of a concern that the legal department may have brought up.
It's possible.
I mean, there's no excuse to just drop the whole thing and just say, "Oh, he wins with paint."
Yeah.
That's all. They've written.
God, this is so cathartic.
See, this podcast is cathartic. All of this.
Yeah, it's always been a frustration because I tried for such a long time to like Finn Balor and to see what everyone else sees, and I was just like, no, 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 no.
Very.
Yeah, there's just nothing there to him, and it's just I don't know. And I understand, like, you know what, if he's gonna stay over, like doing his little arms wavy gimmick and his paint, and you know, if people are gonna love it, and good for them, but
Hey, look, two people
that's the
actually
reason.
doing
That's the
his
reason
gimmick
why.
better than he does.
Yeah, that's why. That's why he's still down in NXT. Like, I mean, there's nothing else to the guy, you know? For a main roster, you know, if people don't know this guy and, like, didn't already love him, like, excited to see Prince Devitt, you know, come to NXT, come to WWE, what is, like, a new person going to see and be like, what am I supposed to be into about this guy, you know? But I don't know. Which is why I'm kind of excited now that I kind of seems like the Bullet Club might be with AJ to start off, at least.
Yeah.
Which
Works for me.
Yeah, which I think would be
an upgrade over Finn Balor leading this Balor Club. You know, just give him some guy. Interestingly, I just thought of this. Why don't they pair him up with a certain ungovernable who's now in NXT? That might work.
Sombra?
Yeah, Sombra.
and just do like an awkward lazy thing, like.
What have they been doing with him at the house shows? Does anybody know?
He's faced Nakamura at the last house show.
Wow,
Ooh.
that would have been good to see.
Yeah.
There is one of him. God, when was it? 2013. An event called Kizuna Road. Nakamura and La Sombra for the IWGP Intercontinental strap. That is an excellent match.
Any of his CMML stuff actually is good to watch, especially when he's fighting against his former partner Rush, who is a phenomenal heel. One of the best heels I have seen in a very, very long time. Everything Finn Balor isn't, Rush is, and I'm so shocked they actually didn't sign him, although probably he may have either cost too much or CMLL didn't want to let him go, which is understandable considering he has drinks literally thrown at him from the audience.
I saw you and Tierney marking out over him last night in the open thread.
Oh my God, he's so phenomenal. And he, you know, they do two shows. They do Monday night shows on their YouTube channel, and then they do the Kairos Sports broadcast every Friday night at like 9:30 Mexican time. And they are just so unique and so interesting to watch, which, you know, makes watching NXT for me is like, this is like 1980s NWA, except 1980s NWA was more interesting to me. I don't know what it is about this show, but it just isn't that interesting. Probably because it's all like telegraphed very ahead of time. You know, most of the time when you read tapings or spoilers, it doesn't really affect how I view matches. With NXT, it does, because there's just such an unknown quality of, are the spoilers that you're getting, are they actually good spoilers? Are they, you know, accurate to what the crowd is reacting to? You know, there's just so many variables when it comes to NXT tapings. You're not really sure who or what is going to be a good match.
I don't know. I found that the spoilers are usually the result. They don't really capture, you know, a lot of the ones that, like Wrestling Inc. does the biggest set, and I know Handstock does a set also. But usually they only really capture the result, so it's hard to know just from that. You know, there have definitely been things that I've read in the spoilers and like, oh, that sounds like it's going to be awful, and then seen them on tape. Things that have turned out to be as awful as I thought they were going to be, but, you know, your mileage may vary. I actually enjoy the, you know, the kind of the 1980s NWA vibe to it. As we said at the top of this, you know, that kind of like booking style of, you know, shorter promos, squash matches, having an actual hierarchy that establishes who's important and who's not. I really like that. it's simple and satisfying. And if that's not your thing, it's 2016. There's a shit ton of other wrestling out there, as you said yourself, Fizzy. With
that formula works though. That formula that they have works better than the formula their main roster has.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
Getting the performers ready to face larger audiences, and also to getting the performers over with the audience actually watching the show. And on main roster, they'll have a whole bunch of shit going on for 3 hours, and your head hurts.
Yeah. yeah.
And nobody's gotten over with you. No one. You're just like, fuck this.
Yeah, I mean, Videns keeps saying it, like he's been saying it for the last week. The only people that get protest chants now are like people in NXT, and it's like you've made everybody on the main roster such a geek that no one like cares about them. It's not even worth chanting like another person on the main roster. Instead, you've got in a 27-hour main event WrestleMania match between Triple H and Roman Reigns, in which the match is just butter knife dull for the most part. You've got chants for the NXT Tag Team Champions. Your developmental tag champions get a chant in the main event of WrestleMania. And then you've got Bayley, obviously, and you know, you got Nakamura chants. I've been making the point a couple of times lately that, you know, you never hear Finn Balor chants.
No, ever.
No, you don't.
Never. You never hear a Finn protest chant, which I think is kind of a statement. It's a telling sign. Like, he might be over with his entrance and his paint and all that, but
people are
he doesn't necessarily have people wanting to come pay for him, you know?
I gotta say, they didn't get a protest chant, but I was exceedingly gratified by how instantly and immediately over Enzo and Cass were.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was so happy for those two.
God.
Cass had legitimate tears in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
You saw that there, Tanya. You know, look on his face. He was wiping away tears as he was trying to cut the promo on the microphone, and Enzo basically had to carry a lot of that segment because he was just so full of emotion. He was like, "Oh my God, I'm here! I'm on the main roster!"
Oh my God! And the lines.
The lines, yeah.
Shut up before I hit you.
Think about it, Bubba.
And put your lazy eye back to work.
Take 2 seconds and think about it, Bubba. That's 2 more thoughts than you have all day. Fall back like your hairline.
There's just so many good things. Continue, Sam.
The guy who's directing the show that I'm in right now is also a wrestling fan. Does not watch NXT. Saw Enzo and Cass for the first time on Monday night and completely loved everything about them.
And those are 2 guys that came straight from developmental. They had the raw talent, and they took it and honed it and made them ready for the main stage. So NXT does work, and we now just need the fucker booking the main roster to get behind these guys.
Well, you notice that Ryan Ward, who used to be one of the guys who had the book on NXT, is now the head writer for SmackDown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's a start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will also note, as I love doing, that, you know, anybody else find it strangely coincidental that Enzo and Cass got a hell of a lot better in ring after Bill DeMott got shit canned?
Thank you.
Seriously.
Although I don't want to harp too much on DeMont, because seeing as that he recently lost a daughter in a car accident, I'd like to make note of that. You know, sorry for the loss, but you were the most horrible trainer in NXT. I'm so glad that they brought in somebody new who isn't Bill DeMont, with his track record, with his abuse, with his sort of what were they, homophobic taunts?
He was homophobic and racist.
Nevertheless, Bill, we offer you our condolences on the death of your daughter. That is very sad.
Yeah, it is.
So what do we think? Okay, so we've just got a bunch of call-ups. We got Enzo and Cass, we got Apollo Crews, we got Baron Corbin. I'm probably forgetting somebody. I feel like
we've also got like 10 minutes left. So
10 minutes left. What Do we think we should establish like a set, like I guess Smart Mania is now one point of the year in which we're going to expect a couple of debuts at least. Should we start, I feel like the main roster or WWE should basically make it a established thing, like legitimate policy that call-ups happen Smart Mania and Smart Mania 2 the night after SummerSlam. I feel like doing that would help NXT structure its stories a little bit more. It would know when people are going to be going, you know, and I think it provides a little bit of jolt. Provides a little bit of a jolt and excitement for, you know, the time after Mania, summer, whatever, and then fall, you know, which are both usually not great, you know, periods for the WWE.
I love the summer and fall months of wrestling.
Okay, of course you do, Fizzy.
Anything that's not Mania season, I generally enjoy. But this was actually the first Mania season I actually enjoyed in my time as a wrestling fan.
Oh, pause. This is the first WrestleMania season you enjoyed?
Most of the time I hide in my bunker because, you know, everybody's going, oh, this guy should win. No, that person should win. No, this person should win over here. There was that, but, you know, at the same time, it was guys that I wanted to see win. Samoa Joe, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar crushing Dean Ambrose, you know. That feel-good moment for Zack Ryder, which made things and stuff so happy, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually think, and that was like the perfect way to do it for Ryder also. You know, he got the moment, he dropped it immediately to Miz. Miz will now do what he does and be a heat magnet and hopefully transfer that heat to somebody else.
Yep.
So, yeah, this has been, like, the most awesome show ever that I think that we've done thus far in Cageside Speaks, at least in my time in doing these shows. And
Go us!
Yeah, look at this, Ross. We are awesome! Like, we're gonna do that chant, right?
I hate that chant.
That's why I had to do it.
That or what? What?
Oh, God. Yeah.
Stone Cold Steve Austin is the only person who should get what chant.
Yeah.
so
Notice,
we have like a little bit of time left to final thoughts. Let's start off with Tanya.
Well, I was kind of down on NXT before London. It really wasn't anybody for me to get behind. Then I got behind Bayley, and they killed her. So I'm just looking forward to, like, you know, who else they're building up and working up. And I'm more worried about the men's than the women. I don't know what they're going to do to get that title off Finn Balor. I want it to happen really soon. But other than that, it was a great show, and I look forward to seeing everything NXT does in the future.
Okay, Andrew, your final thoughts.
I feel like it's a weird time for NXT. It's like NXT 2.0 is over. Pre-network NXT would be 1.0, and then network to Sami Zayn basically leaving is 2.0. So now it's going to be an interesting, you know, to see how that works going forward with losing a lot of, you know, what made NXT NXT. And I've got faith in the writers and the bookers and the performers to be able to pull that off, which is something I absolutely cannot say, even despite the last good week on Raw and SmackDown for the main roster.
Okay, so Sam, your final thoughts.
You know, a lot of the same. I'm really looking forward to seeing NXT's new direction. The spoilers coming out of the tapings at Access are very interesting in terms of who's doing what and who's going over. You know, the fact that they just signed Nikki Storm, the fact that they signed the Mighty Don't Kneel, the fact that they have, you know, people like Athena and Billie Kay and La Sombra and, you know, and even, you know, non-indie people like King Constantine I have become irrationally interested in. He's the big Serbian Greco-Roman guy. He's great. but you know, there's a lot of potential there waiting to be harnessed. And as Andrew said, the bookers and writing staff at NXT have earned a lot of slack from me. So I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Okay, Danny, your final thoughts.
Yeah, I think the group covered a lot of stuff very well. I agree that NXT 2.0 is over at this point, but that gets me excited about two things. One, obviously, where NXT is going, but two, where the main roster is going, where Raw and SmackDown are going, because I think NXT is now starting to have its effect on the main roster. Maybe we are getting some booking that's more like NXT booking, but we're also getting guys that the developmental process has worked for and are ready for that main stage and ready to get me more interested in Monday and Thursday nights. And so I'm very excited about that. I wanted to point out, too, when we did our We Are Awesome chant, that chant did not happen at this year's Smarkamania main event because they're starting to get some things right. I think we're starting to see some NXT influence. And look at the guys that were in that match. We got KO, we got Styles, we got a returning Cesaro and stuff, but you know, the main events are getting more interesting because we've got guys that are better for the NXT type of crowd main eventing now, and you don't have any ridiculous chance like we did in the main event last year. So I think there is progress being made, and I think that the stuff that's happening down in NXT is now finally affecting what we're seeing on the main roster, and that's very exciting to me.
I have been one of the people who's been very hesitant on NXT for the last couple of years, mainly just because that's who I am. I'm a hesitant person. I don't necessarily buy into things right away like most people do. And this show had 3 excellent matches on the card. I really enjoyed TakeOver Dallas. I really enjoyed Alpha winning the titles over the Orlando Wrecking Crew. I really enjoyed Nakamura ending Zayn, and I really enjoyed the best match on the card, which was Bayley Asuka. In my view, you know, because Bayley was able to take the fight to Asuka and was able to hold her own against her, which I found was awesome and was really a great step forward in the continuing steps forward for the revival of women's wrestling in the United States and around the world, basically. And also, well, we also got to bury Finn Balor for the last, 30 minutes or so. Incredibly good farting, honestly. That's, you know, that at least we agreed on something regarding the main event, and that Finn Balor is the blandest bland of flan that I've ever seen or seen served at a restaurant of 5 stars. In a 5-star restaurant, Finn Balor is the cheap menu. You know,
He's actually the glass of water.
the glass of water or the drink coaster. The drink coaster.
That note.
One word, though, that makes me feel better about the future. Swagsuke.
Yep. Hopefully Swagsuke ends the Demons' run of terror in NXT. Well, this has been a great, fantastic broadcast of Cageside Speaks. Thank you so much for tuning in, folks, to see all of these wonderful people do their, you know, showcase their love of wrestling over this last hour or so. And we'll see you for the next edition of Cageside Speaks, which will be the Mania show, which Turney is doing at the same time as we're doing this show. So tune into that broadcast as well. Give him some love, you know, and have a wonderful day, ladies and gentlemen. And have a good day and good night.
Bye.
Adios.
Laters.
4.